Alright, here we are with Persona Sleepaway Summer Camp, episode outro. I am Devin the referee, and to my left we had...
Nicole?
Tyler?
Peter?
Mark?
And Kevin is still not here. It's the same night that the intro was recorded, but not that the other episodes were recorded. It's all out of order, listeners. So, this is the outro, where we talk about the game you just listened to, and what we liked and what we didn't like, and what our thoughts were, like we do with all our other games. We just talk a lot to fill up 20 to 30 minutes to justify it being a weekly episode. It's a freebie in my books.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it's a freebie. Fuck, knock 2 or 3 of these out a night. It's great. So, yeah, we ran through 4 sessions of Persona. And had, 2 that were really pretty big combat-heavy based. And 2 that were really social-based. And we kind of got a shake of the system. And yeah, who wants to talk about things they liked or didn't like? Who wants to talk about mechanics or setting or events that happened?
I liked being able to actually build the persona, like the individual parts and what it can do and stuff. It satisfies a very... Listen, listeners. I know it's not a very good system, but my first game was Besom Second Revised.
Yeah.
I know it's terrible, but it really satisfies that urge of being able to, manage the different parts of your, fighter thing, because it was a pet monster we were playing. It really satisfies that urge, and this game does the same thing. It scratches that same itch where you can just, decide what little bits you want to have on it and everything, so.
For murder.
I really like it. I like that.
Yeah. I guess it was nice to have, an errata built specifically for us for the last, couple sessions.
That was nice, yeah.
Thank you, guys.
I think it's a really good concept. I get where you're coming from, this idea of designing designing your own persona and choosing your own abilities. I think that's pretty neat. But I absolutely hate this system. I despise it. You couldn't see it, but there was a time in the first combat we ran where I was just literally just shaking.
Oh yeah, it was a nightmare.
I was just having a seizure because I hated the system so much and the arguments that was. Now, admittedly, a lot of that was because the book is poorly organized and we're kind of not. We don't actually have we're all doing this electronically, so we're kind of thumbing through 3 different books and we're operating stuff like that. But the game strikes me as being needlessly complicated. I have a lot of problems with the randomization, the way that you get the dice. I don't like the fact that it seems to me that once you lose a location, that
it's spiral time.
I'm honestly a big fan, believe it or not, especially in anime style, Japanese style games, of the exact opposite. I like the reverse death spiral.
So what does that look like? Just for
the more you get injured and the more things go badly for you, you actually get bonuses, but then you actually have to start dealing with real risk. So, as a really good example, there's not many systems that do this correctly, but one of the ones that I think really does well is Tenra Bancho Zero.
Oh my fucking Christ, Tenra Bancho.
And I know that's not a thing in Persona, but it just really felt like even if you try to make characters really tough, if you get a whack to that location and you lose that one location, then all your toughness doesn't matter if you get hit there.
Oh yeah. Once location goes down, you're right under their armor.
The one thing that really, really drives me crazy about this system is that at the end of the day, the only reasonable way you're going to deal with an opponent is to attack him. And there's no MP to cast magic on him. You know that just by the nature of RPGs, you're not going to have a lot of jank fights where you're you just carve through all the monsters by casting a single spell. That is just not the way the game is designed.
Well,
RPGs aren't designed that way.
Well, it is, but it's not something that would be front and center because you don't have to do it in the tabletop version.
No, exactly.
That's something that happens in the video game and it makes you feel awesome because you dump 12 hours into it. But
yeah, exactly. And I think that's a really big part of the system because at the end of the day, it comes down to having a really, really strong attack, or you get a couple area buffs like we were doing in this one.
Well, you guys took Buffy for a ride.
I don't know. In contrast, I absolutely loved the system. I thought it was great. I liked the dice mechanic. I liked the way that it was very tactical, but it also incorporated a strong element of chance to it. And I like the way the initiative played out. And you declared and then acted in different orders, and going ahead of someone was a big deal. So you could roll your dice and you could get a very fast but weak attack, or a really strong but slow attack, and have to choose between which of those you would apply. It was fun. Like, getting to make interesting choices in a combat is really, really good, as opposed to just, I hit it again, I hit it with my sword.
I don't consider those choices, though. I don't think they were really they're like, because what dice you choose, like, the only time I remember us having a discussion about which dice set to choose was one where we literally didn't know, like, how the rules worked.
Yeah, we had that during the defense of the last combat, I think.
No.
Yeah, when we were doing multiple actions, and one was an attack, one was a defend, and we were deciding how to allocate them.
Yeah, that was like one time when we had a really strategic thing to figure out and really test this. So, from my perspective, like, the system has a bit of depth that you don't necessarily see instantly. Like, where you lay out your parts is important, like the order relative to each other. Like, for example, I build a character that has strong defense. I put my 2 weak spots right next to it, so when I roll defense, I can move my attacks from my weak spots into my tough spot, and so on. So there's a little bit of strategy going there for how you build things, but there's also some things that are optimal to take. Like, if you want to fight, you take awesome, because it gives you a lot bang for your buck. Being able to shift the die to make a combo better is stronger than like 2 dice you get.
Specifically, you put 3 dice, so you get 15 dice in an attack.
Yeah.
You put something similar into a defense.
Yeah.
You put 3 hit locations, to clarify for the listeners.
Yeah, 3 hit locations.
As a hit location number is worth 5 dice.
There's a really old system. This system has a problem that has been in RPGs for like 20 plus years, and I call it the Gundam problem. It's any location, any game where you have multiple locations, really encourages taking as few locations as possible.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this one is no different. And dealing with utility abilities, because the utility abilities can only be used in so like few situations, and most of the utility, I think the GMs are just going to be encouraged to, like, you're not going to skip out the combat in Persona game. That is not a thing that's likely to happen more than once in an adventure. Like, it's like D&D, right? Like, you're occasionally going to dodge a fight.
The big shadow fights are one of the draws of the in-depth combat system. They have to be there.
So most of the utility is not, which can only be used in the Shadow Realm anyway, it's not a shadow in the Shadow Realm anyway, is not going to come up all that often. And so at the end of the day, it comes down to hitting things really hard or throwing a buff.
But that's where I'd like to see the useful maybe developed a bit and fleshed out, because I believe one of the things they mentioned is that I think it was like charm or something could be used to stun someone.
Yeah, most of those useful abilities in the Velvet book have combat and non-combat applications. They work both.
Also,
Which we say like, oh, you build like one big attack and then you just hit him with the big attack and that's the best thing ever, but it's not. Especially if they've got like 4 or 5 people and one of them has a stun, and that person throws a stun on the person with the big attack, then all of a sudden that's just shut down.
Also,
having good defense means you can survive those kinds of attacks long enough to get back on your feet too. So there are strategies that I'm sorry to cut you off, Nicole. I just wanted to voice this because you two were both kind of pulling in either direction. There's a lot of potential for that stuff to work. Like, the depth is there and it's actionable. I think it would have all run a lot smoother if it was more accessible to us and we were more familiar with it. Like, the Velvet book being 3 different books we had to read. Like, we had to go through the Velvet book and then Monsters and the expansion. That made every combat run much slower. But if the Velvet book was one book, like if it was just the one book and they were finished and it was in gold status, and it was bookmarked, bookmark your fucking PDFs, then it would have been easier for us to kind of get into that system and dive in.
Oh, another one. Sorry.
Let's say Nicole, and then we'll circle back.
The thing where the useful abilities weren't useful very often is because of the type of game we were playing.
Yeah.
The other Persona game that we're planning on playing, or may play, I don't know, whole areas of the game that we'll be hanging out for days on end kind of thing, will be the Shadow Realm. So those useful abilities will come up a lot more often. In this one, we were only there for like a couple hours every night, maybe, so it didn't come up as often.
That's actually a good point. I want to make sure that we separate the limitations that were in place because of how we were in a very short game, and the limitations of the game in general aren't like, you know, tagging each other. We're not blaming the wrong cause for the wrong thing.
Exactly, and like my turning things into pigs thing didn't come up super often because I forgot about it, actually. But when it came up, it was fantastic. I loved that.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
And you used your invisibility a lot too.
Oh yeah,
Every fight.
yeah. My character was pretty much always invisible.
And Kevin, if you were paying attention, was always putting mirrors around wherever he was. Like he's like, oh, I put a pocket mirror here. I put some glass here. Because he has the useful ability to teleport to where mirrors are. So he was putting down fast travel locations in the background in case we ever needed them.
Although quietly he did that too. Just just putting a mirror here.
Yeah.
So those elements were there. You were saying though, Mark.
Yeah, that was just I think that I will also agree that the short game, I was actually looking forward to more of the daily life stuff.
Yeah.
And getting to know all the NPCs that you lovingly created, and it definitely much reminded me, the whole realm reminded me very much of Twin Peaks.
Yeah, that was what I was going for there.
And I would have liked to explore that more. I would have liked to have gotten one more point in social links, and I definitely think the game would benefit from a small group and a long
game. Yeah.
And a long game.
Yeah. Power-wise, too, with the combat system, we have to keep in mind that I started you guys off at end level. There are two ways to build personas, because your persona has 10 hit locations, and each hit location is worth a die. You need to build at least 4 hit locations, like 4 body parts to assign hit locations. So the head gets 2, the arm gets 2, the body gets 2, that sort of thing, until 10 have been assigned. And if you're playing standard persona, each hit location is worth 3 dice. So if you put 2 into, like, your laser cannon arm, that means it's 6 dice. That can either be 6 dice you roll, or you take some of those dice out and exchange them for extras, like gnarly for more damage, or awesome for different rerolls, or fast for it being quicker, leaving you with like 5, 4, or 3 dice to roll in the actual action. For this game, we started you off at the powerful end because we wanted this to be kind of a breadth run. So each hit location was worth 5 dice. So Mega Buster guy, instead of having 6 dice in Mega Buster, has 10 to play around with. And that adds up quick. If you put like 3 dice in a hit location, that's 15 dice. Which is you can spend 5 on extras and have 10 left over to roll every time for your big whammy attack.
Yep.
Whereas a similar character would only have 9, which means even if he was very skimpy on extras, he still wouldn't get the 10 dice that you guys were throwing around.
I would think, I think that the game could definitely use with some more maneuvering of tactical options, but the actual, the idea of the persona and all that stuff, I think and the arcana, those were pretty solid.
Yeah.
And even the club mechanics, and this is kind of like, if you ever play in a game, we're going to have the school subjects and getting your grades up. Because
Exactly. Oh no, we'll put all that into play. It'll be good.
Like, the system, I think, would benefit from what we figured out for Chronicles of Darkness, that the sessions can actually, if you start off individual, you have 8 time slot for your character to do something by yourself, and then you do that for half of the session or 10 of the session, and then everything else is a group activity. I think that might be a good flow to have.
Yeah, because when we ran Chronicles of Darkness, we were running Creepy Rashomon Dream Buffet, I was literally using the persona system where the first time slot of the session is you guys doing individual stuff to upgrade your backstories or whatever.
Yep.
The second time slot was you guys together. The third time slot was all the vampires in the city hanging out.
Yep.
That's just, that's exactly what I did too. Yeah. So I think something like that for the longer form Persona game would be good. And I definitely think starting you guys off at 3 dice, 3 dice per body part, would be better, because then you could get a chance to grow. And fighting major shadows becomes super valuable because you can whip dice out of them to add to your character.
And it also compels you to use your social links. To tap into those.
Social links give you direct mechanical benefits in combat by tapping them for their Arcana dice.
I was going to mention too, one of there's a couple of things in that book that I hope they really do a good job of making defense a little more obvious in how
this
it
is going to
works.
be the big one, yeah.
And lets other people. Another thing too is some other options be in Persona. you have the option of literally defending, and it's sometimes actually a really good tactic, and defending other people, and like making that as a potential as potential options, because it really doesn't seem like those are good moves. Another one is boost. Boost is so terrible.
Yeah,
It's
so
amazing in the game.
let's talk about Monsters and Other Childish Things. So Monsters and Other Childish Things was written in like 2002, 2003 by Arc Dream Publishing, and it hasn't really gotten any. It's a product of its time. All right, it is an outdated trad game that is not clearly written. The layout is all over the place. Okay, so you know how we were talking about the word gnarly, listeners? Gnarly is an ability you can give to your monster that gives him one more grievous attack, like more damage on the body part he's using to attack with. But gnarly also exists as its own separate power that humans can get. They're named the same, they have slightly different applications, but everything in the game is like that. There's a spray ability specifically for monsters called Spray, and there's a spray ability also called Spray specifically for people, and they don't work the same. And it's across all of that.
It was very confusing.
It's very confusing. The layout is bad. The terminology, while cute, should have just been like armor, more damage, area attack, and like area for humans and area for monsters works totally different.
Yeah.
So, and the biggest fucking offender is defending. I don't know how we defend in this game. I don't. We've gone over it a bunch of times. We've read the Monsters book. We read the Velvet book. We went back and forth. I don't know how defending works because there's 4 different versions of defending. So, as a human, you're assumed, as a human or a persona, you're assumed to be defending yourself in a fight, a jerk. So there's no specific action for it. But a human can roll their defense to say, I'm defending, and that becomes automatic gobble dice that just shuts down other attacks. It just shuts it down. And there's also dodging. So, like, defending lets you defend other people, dodging lets you dodge, but the rules are different for the monsters, and they rely on the body parts you're using, and the body parts interact in different ways, and they're shifting. Like, the defense rules are a sloppy fucking mess, and they immediately grind every combat to a halt.
And then you also have groups attacks, which group combat was like not at all explained that well in the Monster Childhood things.
Monsters and Childish Other Things was not written for group combat. It was not built for 5 people with a monster fighting each other. Like, it was built for a Pokemon ripoff bullshit, where you have 1 kid, you have 1 monster. You have 1 NPC, they have 1 monster. The 2 of you have a Pokemon battle where it's 1-on-1, and then the winner rips a bit off the other monster and adds it to their character and gets a power. That's how the system was written. And the Velvet book is assuming it's Persona, where you have 5 dudes with 5 personas, and they're all doing something interesting. And the numbers and the scale and the turn economy are not built for that.
No,
But
that's
the draft of the Velvet book we got addressed that, though. Like, it did. Like, it has rules for that. It talks about it in there.
That's another thing too. Like I mean, it's really clear that these rules. There's a few other things too. I was considering taking 1 ability when I saw it, and then I realized, I didn't have it before, and also it was bullshit. And literally, it would have made the game kind of silly. Like, the power my character has liaison is the target number. A number of like sets I need for it is the brain part. The number of dice and whatever brain part.
Dice in the brain pool.
You have to assign one of your body parts as the brain location, listeners. If the brain location gets knocked offline, the monster goes offline.
And it's not always clear which one that is. At least it isn't for.
No, you have to kind of investigate with your dice rolls and take actions during the fight to figure it out.
But there's another one too, the instant death effect, and I think you need 7 successes to get someone who's strong in an element against it. So like that is the worst case scenario, which means it's significantly easier usually to auto kill someone with a useful ability than it is to stop the fight for a few seconds.
It can affect major shadows. That's one of the caveats
that's
of power, which the major shadows are kind of the big boss monsters you want to write up every few sessions to make the players fight, because they're fun. They're a tactical fight. But normal shadows, you can just rip through them with that. And it's kind of intended, but it does kind of make the social powers. Like, I like that the useful abilities were clearly defined. The liaison and charisma monsters had an in-game and had an in-combat and out-of-combat application, which had clear rules. It was not the GM has to ad hoc it. They did not do that. They made it very clear, which is good. It was something we could reference in the goddamn fight.
If anyone ever decides to run this again, I'm going to strongly recommend that for any of the major shadows, you massively make them really powerful, and you basically kind of put on the giant kind of get a clue button for your players, and you put in the environment reactions. Like, I don't know if you were, like, the game, they mentioned the Book of Blimps. I don't know if you did it, but one of the things about the new game they set up was that, like, in the really big, crazy fights they have, you can't win those fights in Persona 5 by just constantly attacking. A point will come up where the enemy will use ultimate magical bullshit power, and a character in your party will suggest, oh, one of us can go and do the thing that will stop this from happening. Like, you know, if we steal the enemy MacGuffin, then he won't be able to use his magical bullshit powers.
Yeah, you gotta make it more puzzly.
So you gotta make it more puzzly, and you gotta try and really encourage players to use their non-persona powers in order to get by that. And I think that would make it a bit better, but it's
Yeah, and that's the thing. You want to make Major Shadows a puzzle. You want to make them engaging. We didn't do a lot of that just because we were doing.
We know the rules.
Well, we were doing mechanics testing, so I didn't get a chance to really build those kind of scenescapes. But that's what you should be doing.
But I mean, it was good in the last fight where we had like the shield where you needed to have your set be a height,
but
like a certain height to get over.
All that essentially means is if you rolled half of your dice, their attacks just miss. Like that.
Not if you're rolling using like awesome or dice fixing.
Okay, so like that still means that the low numbers are even less useful. It's still basically your dice must be this high to enter. That's all
right,
essentially.
Which is what it does, which forces you to maybe use a less
there's a way
optimal attack.
Oh, and
There's
it makes
also
the
a
best
way-
ability in the game better too.
It also, that shield could have been turned off by a player action. If you did an outthink, you could have figured out how to turn it off, which forces someone in the party to go out on a limb and be like, I gotta take out this shield so our dice don't get caught.
If you roll outthink in that game, you're using a human power, which means that you are basically setting yourself to be take 10 scars, which basically
So
means
maybe
your character's
you rely on another player to defend you with their persona, which encourages some aspect of
But
teamwork.
then we have to look at how the defense rules work.
But we're working in a world here where those have been refined and clearly written.
Yeah.
I agree with both of you with what you're talking about, but I think there's a lot more give we could give the system if it had a chance to lay itself out properly. Because it's not laid out properly. Let's be honest here, right?
Yeah.
There's parts of it that are obfuscated behind just bad layout and bad writing.
Plus, even while we were playing the game, we found some powers that had to be errated out. Like my initial build for
sharing.
Sharing.
God,
I was like, you take your two locations, they're like attack, defend, max them out, and add sharing to them, which is the one die less. That means you as a person can hit like a brick and defend, like a turtle for any attack, because it doesn't matter which location you get hit at. You can still share your defense on it, so you're better than your persona at fighting.
Yeah.
My human character could also turn invisible and always tell if people are lying and fly.
Monsters and Other Childish Things had a power called sharing, where the creepy eldritch monster and the kid could merge in certain areas and stuff. The Velvet Book cut that in the newest edition we got in the middle of the game, so fuck that. Fuck sharing.
Yeah. But yeah, there's the thing about rolling dice and so on. Rolling sets. The more dice you have, the better you are. But still, the height is pretty much random. Like linear 1 to 10, you can't really control that all that much.
But I like that element of unreliability because, like I said, it differentiated from a system where you have +8 to strength and a D12 for your battle axe, and you're just rolling that again and again.
Yeah, let's talk about the D&D problem. Okay, the D&D problem we've all known about it for 40 years. It's you build a character and you have two numbers you roll. No, there are two numbers that matter. There's the to hit and the D20 to modify the to hit. So at the higher levels, the D20 stops mattering. At about the time where you're rolling +10, +15 reliably, the actual D20 is not important because odds are you're going to hit unless you roll a 1 anyway. So the randomization isn't really existing anymore, and nothing in the game scales to match that. That was kind of the win with Persona, where you could be super effective, but you being super effective didn't obviate the need for chance. Because being super effective in Persona meant that you stacked your roll with better modifiers, like better things like Wicked Fast, or Defense, or Attacks, or Gnarly. Or it means that because you have so many dice, you can build multiple sets and therefore have multiple options on what you're doing.
And with a smaller dice pool for your character, I think that those decisions become far more pronounced. Whereas, like for us, we were all rolling
10 dice.
9 or 10 dice pretty much
Reliably.
every time.
Yeah.
And that's starting you guys at 5 dice just because we wanted to see what the meats of the system was. I really see this being a lot more tactical at the 3 dice per hit location. I see it living there pretty well.
Then you would say roll 2 dice, one of them being awesome 2, so you always get a set, and then you just stack up the modifiers.
If you can afford it, yeah, but that's really pricey at 3 dice. The difference between your persona and the persona that the game tells you to start with, the 3 die to the 5 hit die, are 20 entire dice gone.
Yeah.
You got a budget at that point, and then that makes different. Your hit locations are more vulnerable. You don't have as much to just drop on Awesome 2 every single time. Awesome 2 is an entire hit location almost.
Yeah.
So, if you're building your 3 hit location boomer, it's going to be 7 dice-ish. And that's without, just have Awesome 2. And then you got to add other things to it to make it even effective.
Yeah.
I still think, Awesome is pretty hard to...
Yeah, it's also
Hard to
like
beat. It's
The book calls out Awesome is really good to the point where when we give formal feedback, and I'm sure the developer listened all the way through, Awesome either has to go or it has to be changed in a little way, because it was built for monsters and other childish things, and that game was a little more you didn't have 5 PCs constantly throwing Awesome every single time to always manipulate the range.
One thing you may want to look into also is, since you're already going off the beaten track with these things, this system reminds me of another game slightly in that it uses match sets.
Oh, please don't say Cthulhu Tech.
No, weapons of the
Wulin?
weapons of Wulin, or weapons of the gods, or whatever, or the way of Wulin. But one of the things they have this was a concept called the river, which allowed you to occasionally float dice that weren't used, which meant that if you rolled a bunch of dice and you couldn't use them, there was other potential uses for them, either for defense or for or you could potentially hold them between rounds. But just more interesting ways of actually affecting the dice other than the ability that everyone takes.
maybe some ability to reroll some of the dice or something like play a bit more with them, I guess.
Yeah.
Diversify what Awesome does, and if Awesome is going to stick around, maybe up the cost by 1. If Awesome cost 3 dice, don't have an Awesome 1. Awesome 1 was you set a die beforehand. Get fucking rid of that. No.
No one.
Because there's a rule for this. It's called aiming. If you take your time to aim and line up a shot, you get to pick a die ahead of time and set it to something. Let that rule exist, because that rule actually stops working if Awesome works. It even says in Awesome, if you're doing Awesome, you can't aim anymore. So, okay, that's a problem. That means a base thing everyone can do gets cut out by how good Awesome is. So don't even have level 1 Awesome. Make Awesome worth 3 dice. 1 entire hit location for a starting persona, which will make it valuable for that hit location. It makes it stand out. And then let the set beforehand thing aiming come into play. And then build other things that are cheaper at 1 die to do stuff with the pool to make you a little more effective.
Yeah. And
What do you think for that, Tyler?
No, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Awesome. For 2 points, Awesome 2 is...
Awesome is too good. Every NPC I built had it.
Yeah.
It's literally too good because we all have to take it.
I mean, yeah, you take Awesome because that just ups your ability to do anything.
Yeah.
It quickly just becomes a tax.
And then you add Wicked Fast to say you're defensive on it, so you can defend at all. If you don't roll wide enough, and
it's like, hey, I rolled a 10, and now I'm going to use Awesome to make it 2 10s, and I put Wicked Fast 5 on, so I'm going to go first and hit with 2 10s and hit your 10 location, which is usually your brain, and it's gone.
Or yeah, even if you have Awesome and Wicked Fast, you can snipe them at the location that either they're attacking you from, they're weak or something like that, and just hit that.
If you do that to Awesome, it cannot be part of the Arcana boost. So the Tarot Arcana in Persona, for the social links, they give you dice when you invoke them, or they give you more of a specific dice trick. Yeah. Someone who's from, I don't know, the Lovers. It's not this, but this is an example. If you have a social link with the Lovers, you can trade Lovers' social link. You can gamble them in your roll to add to your dice roll. So if you have 3 dice and you have a 5-point relationship with a Lovers, you can add those 5 dice into your roll for 8 dice. Or you can convert all 5 into gnarly dice. And just be yeah, this attack's gnarly 5 now. If you fix Awesome, Awesome cannot be part of any of those social links.
Yep.
You cannot include it because that quickly makes one social link optimal.
Yep.
Austin has to be either excised from the game or made not super accessible in the way it is, because it really fucks with the dice probability. Like, Monsters and Other Childish Things and Wild Towns have a chart that shows you exactly how the dice probability and matching sets works, and Austin fucks it. Like, why even be rolling dice if you have Austin? Like, in a small way, it asks that question. It's like in D&D, where if, because D&D has such bad balancing to it, if you don't include critical 1 is a failure, critical 20 is success on the attack roll, at higher levels you may as well not even roll the d20 anymore, because there is no chance, there is no probability anymore. Because the numbers get so bloated because of how the d20's engine hasn't been balanced.
There also needs to be some clarification on how buffing works.
Yeah.
Buffing and
Which I'm sure if you've listened to all of the episodes by now is
I have gnarly 15 thanks to all the awesome buffs.
Well, I mean,
guys.
the other thing
Do
too
they
is like,
stack? Does area affect everyone, enemy and ally? Do you have to take a special perk for it to only affect your allies? Does area really make buffs affect everyone in the radius? Because the buff was a powerful, useful ability, and now that you've added area, now you're multiplying that by like 5 or 6 per friendly ally there is.
and if they don't stack, like another thing too is like you're basically going to be putting. If you're going to be a buff bot, you basically have to. The problem with all the abilities cost the same amount, which is weird. Like the ability to get an attack is the same, which is like universally useful, is the same as it is to put one into like the ability to pull things from your coat.
Right, but
which
remember,
is
they have
really
in combat and
weird.
out of combat, whereas the attack thing doesn't. Useful abilities are useful. They can do stuff outside of combat. Attack and defend cannot. Attack and defend don't do anything special.
But
outside of
even
combat.
even the non one, like if I have a power that boosts people's attack, how do I use that outside of combat?
It gives you rules for it in the Velvet Book. It says what it does outside of combat.
No, they never really seem to come up that often.
Not in the 4 sessions we ran. No, I
But
agree.
And if I'm just saying, like, if you're putting 10 points into that, or you're going to make that a major component, and it does stack, it seems really, really powerful to area. But if it doesn't stack, it seems, I don't know why everyone would just take a really powerful attack. And
At least one fucking character.
2 characters need to have a body part devoted to buffing, so they can buff all the other 3 combat characters and themselves.
Yeah. So buffing, combat with multiple participants, multi-actions, all those stuff needs to be figured out and made explicit.
The defending. Oh my god, defending has to be the
Defending,
most crystal clear thing in the world. You have to give examples, you have to tell us how it's used, and do not make them different rules for the player and the monsters.
Yeah.
And in defense of the people who wrote this, though, when we got the errata, that was a huge step forward.
Definitely.
And clarification. So it just needs to be more like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, they're on their way. Like, they've already taken the feedback we've given them for the most part and are applying it. It's just a matter of time. But I think these are the big, bold points, because it's a well-put-together module. Like, the thing that holds the Velvet Book back the most is the Monsters and Other Childish Things
Yeah.
part. The Velvet Book's written really clear, like how advancement works, how the Arcana works, how the school system works, advancement, like it's all laid out.
Something we also haven't mentioned yet, the resists and weaknesses and so on. Like the whole rule, like if I hit you with stuff you're weak to, then it's
Here we go. Sorry, I'm just gonna cut you right off right there. So you had Terrakaja, the gnarly buffer. Yeah. Combat. It adds gnarly ×2 to one of the persona's attack qualities for width -1 rounds. Non-combat. Terrakaja weaponizes stuff. An object influenced by this quality becomes immediately capable of inflicting physical harm, even if it was literally a wet noodle. A width of 2 to 3 lets it inflict width -1 shock. At 4 times width, it becomes a scarring weapon. So out of combat, it lets you pick up like a stick or a rock and be like, give it to a guy, and they huck it, and it starts doing scarring damage to things like trucks or doors. That's what the combat one does. The one that gives you wicked fast makes things greasy fast, making motorcycles, bowling balls, people get their speed cranked up so they can just slide away super quick.
Okay, that's a little more directly useful. Then.
The tough one makes things impossibly durable. So if you guys barricade yourselves in with a door and you use the one that gives you toughness on it, it becomes hard to steal and stuff. It can't be broken down. They all have non-combat effects.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll make them better so they can use some of them in areas out of shadow.
I think
too.
if I had using things in or out of the shadow is up to the group because sometimes you can, sometimes
Depends
you
on the
can't.
world.
So I think if our game was a little more, if this was like a longer full game, you'd be using these all the time. Like if you have the tough one, you'd be using to like barricade yourselves. If I had a monster chasing, because I definitely have monsters chasing, you'd be like, oh no, it's a slasher flick. It's a fucking Camp Crystal Lake.
Turn around and arrest him.
Turn around and fucking Christ. Or the weaponizing stuff, where it's like, hey guys, we're gonna attack shadows. One moment, everyone take these baseball bats that do scarring damage.
Or when Kevin needed to break into that facility and he couldn't find any appropriate tools or whatever, he could just pick up a pile of documents, use that spell.
Now it's hacking its way through the lock.
Yeah.
Like a fucking fire axe.
I'm gonna use this to hack the computer.
So yeah, this stuff, like it starts at page like 46, called the Useful Gallery. Every single thing has a combat and non-combat stuff they wrote out that has clearly defined mechanics. It's not waffly or a GM caveat.
Yeah.
You were saying, Peter.
So, resists and weaknesses and so on. See that when we figure out, that we hit something that's with an attack that it's weak to, suddenly there's a whole different mini game that starts. Like
There's a mini game.
That's totally a nod to
That's Persona. There's a mini game involved when you hit someone's weaknesses. If you have lightning and they're weak to lightning and you hit them with lightning, shit starts going down. And preemptively, I'm going to say you think it's too complicated, right? Because it's its own subsystem. I kind of agree, but I think I don't want to comment on it because we didn't get enough chances with it.
yeah.
I think if we knew it off by heart, like if this was the game we sat down to run once a week for like 2-3 months, and like we were playing it weekly for like 6 hours, we would know this shit. You'd be like, now I'm going to hit his weak point, and then we're going to get an all-in attack, and we're going to fucking sweep him.
I'll just say this, and that's I think that the whole weakness thing might be a little bit for crazy with the knockdowns in terms of making the fight easy. Like one of the things about Persona is the reason they put this in the game is
to make grinding easier, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's when you know how the enemies work, and when you know what like a certain combination, you just go, okay, this is the enemy, the regular, and at 50th time I fought these guys, I'm gonna mass lightning, knock them all down, one more, shoot the one out of the air, and then I'm gonna turn on my all-out attack.
Yeah, I remember that from Persona 4, where it's like, okay, it's these guys that are balls. I use Zeo on them. They all get knocked out. Now we sweep it. The fight took no hit points, basically no mana. It was over in 3 seconds. I got a bunch of stuff from it.
I don't think we need it. You really need it in the RPG. I know you're trying to emulate the video game, but like the purpose there is to grind down your resources.
I think it's such a corner case, though, that it will rarely come up because you have to knock down every enemy to use it.
And
you can't just knock down one enemy and use all-out attack on him.
Yeah,
you have to knock down everyone, get all of their weaknesses.
And it's real, and you're going to be facing different enemies as well. But the reason I mention that is because I don't think you really need it that much. And there's also a skill in the game called Under Diligence for some reason called Beatdown. I think that should probably go.
No, Beatdown's for being physically strong.
You have a P stat, you have a fight stat.
No, PE is Beatdown, I'm almost certain.
Nope, they're separate.
They're separate skills.
And but PE is like running, jumping, climbing.
Yeah,
Beatdown is attacking something that can't.
Yeah, but there's also wind. That's hey, if P is for running, then what's wind for? Also running.
Yeah.
Okay, Beatdown is kicking down doors, breaking crates, and just being like a physical violence guy. PE is for being athletic, and wind is for being in shape so you're not winded, because gutsy is all about your stamina. So wind is like, if you're in the middle of a fight and you're jumping from train top to train top, it's like, okay, you're going to have to make a wind check or you're going to start getting exhausted and might fall between the trains.
It's really weird that Diligent is the one skill that has or one ability. First off, Beatdown just doesn't have that many applications outside of the all-out attack. And
beating down doors.
Beating down doors.
And people are going to say, why can't my martial artist use fighting?
Because fighting's different from beating down a door. Martial artists don't karate chop a door. Martial artists go, shit, I better get a crowbar or the key. They're not idiots.
It's a tool pack. It's important.
And there's and if the guy's on the ground, because no martial art teaches how to attack people who are immobile or to go after them after they're not fighting back.
Good to them.
Yeah, right. it just seems like a really weird edge case. And the other thing too is the only skill in the game where it doesn't add your stat to it for some reason.
What? Does
The
it?
beatdown rule was strictly the number of dice in the party, minimum 11, which also led to the really weird situation that if I had to beat down 5, and we would have been in that situation where we did a beatdown.
No, it does that. You do it at your skills, not
Okay.
just beat down.
You're talking about
No, you said it was skills.
there's a
in there.
skill beatdown and there's the
The
beatdown
beatdown
rule.
action.
No,
That's
I know.
different.
I know, but I'm just saying the all-out attack, like the way it works in the game, is this is what was described to me and how I remember
Yeah,
it.
you
From,
just add your beatdown dice.
it's just your beatdown dice,
Oh.
which is really funny because
Yeah.
if one person had 5 in beatdown in this party, as an example, it wouldn't have affected the dice pool.
I mean, no.
Oh yeah, everyone starts with 2 die,
Because
and then you
everyone
add
starts
beat down.
Yeah, with the minimum 11, I think it is.
Yeah, if it's less than 11, then it just becomes 11.
Like-
If it goes more than 11, you have to roll.
So either everybody specializes in beatdown, so you do this, or
It's a
No,
I'll concede to that. That seems a little odd. Maybe the
Yeah.
rule should be changed. maybe that should be revisited a bit.
maybe
Even
like,
though
hey,
it's
it's 11 plus your beatdowns.
Because
So-
yeah, I'll agree. The way it is now, you either focus on beatdown and all out attacks, which
I mean,
is pretty edge
either with
to
the
be able to
bullies-
pull
If I
off.
was
no, you
running
can't
a
even do it to
Persona,
majors.
if we ran a Persona game with 2 players, they would only, let's say they have beatdown 3 on average. That's 10 dice.
Yeah.
So they never
The
get
11's
it.
going to come up.
But if we ran it with like 6 players and they all put like at least 2 in beatdown, that's 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 26. Is that it? Is that
too
math?
much.
Is that math?
Is that math? Did I do that right? I'm an adult. So that's 21 dice right there, even if they didn't specialize a lot. It seems to... Yeah, you gotta do something else with beatdown to... However you want to do that big dice you roll thing, you gotta figure something out. Because the whole point is rolling a pool where everyone gets to use a set to go one after another, interrupting the flow of combat.
I think I think I mentioned the boost too is another one that needs to be the hard cap on 10 for boost. It's the one situation because I think literally where you spend around doing nothing, I think should be a time where you should be able to.
What the fuck is boost? I've never heard this before.
It's a power that doubles the effectiveness of your next attack in the cost of you doing nothing for an entire round, including defending. I believe.
Jeez. Is it like just like a power in the book?
It's in the Persona
Silent
1, and it's
power,
used
yeah.
and it's used in the Persona rule in the Persona video games a lot.
Is it in the Velvet book? I don't
believe
see it.
it is in there. It's called Boost Attack or something like that, or boost and basically you spend around. And then I asked you one time if it was if the max 10 die pool applies to it. But basically you're spending an entire round charging up.
All right, let me
I
Google
don't
that.
see it.
Charging
Yeah, I don't know what you're
attack.
talking about. I've never heard this before. More
attack.
Arcane boosts, freeform boost, Jack Frost, Magnify Power. Do you mean Magnify Power?
Maybe it generally was referred to as a boost in the Persona game. So maybe
A
I'm.
persona can only use a squad grant bonus to a specific kind of action.
That might be it because it's like usually called attack boost, psychic boost. Magic
Okay, here we
boost.
go. Magnify Power accumulates width and bonus die for a specific action. I don't know, I'm not reading all of this.
Well, maybe we'll look into it later. But that was
Yeah, I don't know,
this
it
was
seems
a
like a
question
thing.
we asked about it.
It seems like a thing.
But with a hard cap at 10, it's not something I could ever see anyone.
I mean, action economy's a thing.
Yeah.
And like even multi-attacking kind of really hinders your action economy. So I don't know I don't know what to do for that. I almost feel like
I think maybe.
If Magnify Power can take your dice pool over 10, I see it being worth it.
yeah, okay. I think on a different note, what would make these useful qualities a lot more useful is if there wasn't a penalty for multi-attacking, like multi-action. Like instead of saying it's -2 dice and you use your lowest dice pool, so if you have a 10 and an 8, then you have to roll 6. Just say, you can take as many actions as you rolled in your dice pool. Just you can't attack twice in a row though.
Without
unless
the
you have the specific bullshit.
splatter thing.
Yeah, you have a specific trick for it, but like no penalty. It's just, you roll your body part, right? And you get like 2 sets in it to be like, all right, one set's the attack and the other set's going to be using the useful quality built into this power.
Because you're already splitting your dice pool.
You
so
can even say like oh, this has got to be they all have to be different attacks, or it would also
Just
be-
say you can only
How many
use
dice do you roll then?
one unique same dice. You don't no penalty. No -2, no
So-
lowest pool.
But then
Just
what?
roll your pool.
His point is like I think is that what if you have one thing at 10 and one thing at
The 2.
yeah, I'm almost kind of at the point where it should be you just roll a number of dice based on your persona's level or something.
Just roll the highest die. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, you'll get like a lot of, I don't know, I guess you'll get a lot of powers that are 1 die that have 9 effects on them.
Yeah.
I don't know, but like penalizing for multi-actions, just say you can only do, you can only do like 1 unique thing per action. Like you can't triple up on attacks. It has to be attack, useful quality, defense, something. Maybe revisit, that's my suggestion. Revisit multi-actions, because penalizing for multi-actions means it's almost never worth it to use useful qualities and attack or and defend.
I mean, pretty much at our level that we are playing at, it'd be defaulting to we're doing multi-action and we have our something and defense on the same level, so we're pretty much staying within the band. Because when you're doing something, you're exposing yourself to an attack, so you want to defend, so you don't die. So, I don't know.
Yeah. My suggestion, I don't know how viable it is, revisit the penalty and the balancing for multi-attacks, for multi-actions. Maybe just let it happen if you have multiple sets. Right? Like, do you see like a huge problem with that, where it's just like, oh hey, I rolled 3 sets, you know?
Well, I think one thing is just that if you don't spend your action defending and having to look up the rules for whatever type of defending you're doing, but that's another.
The defending rules would be clear.
Then you're totally open. So you're almost always, unless you've built a character based around toughness, which is like half your dice if you're covering most of your parts, you're going to be trying to defend.
Yeah.
Or you have an invisibility trick.
Or some.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things here.
There's a lot to unpack. I don't know. I think mechanically, that's. Does anyone else have anything to comment on the mechanics?
No?
I think we've covered everything when it comes to mechanics.
We've ranted about that I've ranted about that.
At the end of the day, I think it's a good system. It just needs that final, those kind of final drafts to come in.
I think it's a good the person who likes it clearly loves Persona. I don't know how much I would keep out of the original system. That is to say, I actually do know almost nothing.
Well, see, there's a lot here that we were using that worked fine. We just didn't get the opportunity to. Like, you not knowing that there were non-combat applications for your buffs, even though there were, like...
Yeah. It never really came up, yeah.
Well, it didn't come up because we ran a short game, so you can't hold that against the system. I think there's more credit here that's due. That's all. As for the actual game, you guys like the NPCs, situations, the surrealness of it?
Yeah. Like Mark said, it would have been cool to get more time with the NPCs.
Yeah.
I guess with the actual game, maybe started with the NPCs a bit too early, because I think we should have established ourselves first and get some problems so we can go to NPCs and do some interaction. Like the first is like, oh, hey, you person for this town that I just arrived at.
It's not how people play Persona.
Yeah.
They play Persona, they see someone that has a unique character sprite, and they fucking beeline for them.
I mean, that's what
That's
they
not
called
on-
it with,
That's not on
Mortimer.
my end.
He's
That's
a
not-
fucking vampire! You can't go around a small town
Tell me
dressed
more about that.
full ass like a vampire and expect people not to be like, what
That's
the
a
fuck?
genre convention you might not have been aware of, Peter, but no. You don't wait for me to give you NPCs. You're like, what does he look like? Does he look fucking weird? A weird fucking guy? Alright. I'm going to focus in on him and get event scenes.
I think that's another thing too about the game, and I think this is going to be a big issue, is if you want to do this sort of thing, I think it would really behoove you to, just as a recommendation to other people, have a smaller game a smaller group, and have a couple NPCs that everyone kind of befriends as members of the group, like the person who are going to actually help you in your shadow quest, and then have actual friends for the players that go up to 10 that people can actually have relationships with. And I would never try and run this with more than 4 players.
That's a
Me,
big thing
myself.
too, because a lot of Persona is the social interaction and the events, so it's a little tricky to do one scene with one player because the social links are mechanically valuable.
Yeah.
You need them and you want them, so I would almost recommend, because I'm going to go the opposite direction, I would recommend you build the social link NPCs And like the ones that aren't story related, because there's ones that they get kidnapped away into a dungeon or whatever, and they're story related. The ones that aren't, the ones that are kind of like the ensemble cast, just farm them out to the other players. Like every player gets like 3 or 4 social link characters. That's them for
that's fine. But I'm just saying, like, it should have been. I think you have to keep in mind that it's.
I mean, I guess it in our setting where everything needs to be recorded.
Yeah.
Then you would run in a smaller group because there's only one microphone and you can't.
That's true.
If you
this
have a
might be a
larger
problem just for us.
Yeah, if you have a larger assembly, you can break people up into groups so they can have some interactions and so on.
Just report back and figure out where you're all at.
If that's something you can manage and figure out. But yeah, I guess if you're just starting with this sort of things, smaller group probably better. And people have to be on board with the whole social, like I suck at social, so for me it's like,
Yeah, if you are a loner and like you either need to come up with an NPC, like a good example, if I had a really nerdy, antisocial, autistic character, style kind of deal, I would focus in on one character who might be easier to relate to, like Skynet. You know what I mean? Like that's sort of a tailor-made kind of, or a character who's not going to, can maybe the character can be sympathetic. I don't know. It's getting late.
It's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing to balance out because you got to balance out the social interactions, but it can't always be 4 people hanging out with one guy.
Yeah.
I also think that for recommendations for other people that want to play this, the GM also has to be proactive with the NPCs. Like, we can go look, like, the first day was only really awkward because we went up to them, but then we didn't actually know who they were, so we're just kind of like, I don't know how to start the conversation. Hello, random stranger. Talk to me about your problems.
Yeah.
But the NPCs, if they were more proactive, they're like, oh, hey, you're the fortune-telling club? What the fuck's that about? Or, like, you go talk to them and they tell you what their problems are or whatever.
If I was going to run a game of Persona, I would probably lock the players in, like, a room, like Danganronpa style, like, minus the murders. But, like, just these are the 20 people you have the potential to talk with. And that is it. Literally force the players to chat with a small group of people and figure out who they actually feel like associating with.
Mm-hmm. Also, well, I guess it's on purpose because it's Persona, but because the arcana that the NPCs have gives you special things you can use.
Yeah.
So, like, people were being like, I'm gonna hang out with this person because of the arcana boost, and seems like it's a Persona thing. But it goes against the grain of how I usually would play. Like, my character was basically only associating with Trinity, the leader of our group, because she's like, you're my best friend. You don't know it yet, but we're gonna be best friends.
Well, I mean, I think that's a choice that you make. I mean, I largely ignored it and just went with the cook because I thought that was the most interesting, regardless of the mechanical benefit.
Yeah, but like, you were talking to you were hanging out with the car, not talking to it, because it was the strength.
I was just hanging out because it was cool. Like, oh, that's an interesting character. I want to hang out.
I did not even look at. I looked at the. I didn't look. I have no idea what the Persona bonuses were.
Oh, okay.
I was looking at the actual sheets with the NPC listings, and I tried for one character, but I kind of felt like I got a little blocked there, so I went in a different direction for.
I do see your point though about how people could just gravitate towards specific mechanical things.
Yeah, I think Kevin might have mentioned it at one point. I knew someone fucking mentioned it, but yeah, it's difficult to balance that too because you want the Arcana boosts, but
I think also there's like certain Arcana boosts have like there's like 3 or 4 Arcana that have essentially the same bonus, isn't there? Like
so you can balance things out. I mean, it's less than that. Oh, do you want to hang out with your rich friend that might give you something, or do you want to hang out with your buddy that is a loser, and so on and so on? Yeah, there's definitely a viable argument, I guess. Especially like in the lower power games where hey, we're so weak, we need to have this quality to survive this combat. I guess I'll have to hang out with Satan because he'll help me in combat.
He'll give me my powers.
Hey, Satan. Oh, yeah, it has a buy-in of itself, the social system. Like, oh, either you're on board for that, or maybe different game would be better.
You gotta find the right mix for your group and your play experience. Like us with Oddcast and being unable to kind of break off into sub scenes, that definitely hampers that. So you gotta kind of find the best fit.
Yep.
Any thoughts beyond that, or are we good to wrap?
I think we're. Anyone else?
I think we're good.
My takeaway was it was positive. Like there's a bunch there. I like the depth of the combat. I like the tactics. I like how like calling off your actions and organizing how your turns are going to go actually mattered. And I like how there's that potential there for all the different moves to kind of click into play. Like when we really started to like coordinate your moves and your actions and your turns and stuff, it started to sing really well. Yeah, like when this gets like a more a closer to done version, I'd probably want to come back to this for another game.
For sure.
I'm not necessarily feeling this game personally, but that's just me, I guess.
Yeah, it's not for everyone. That's fine.
I really like the roleplay aspects. I would be willing to give it a try if now after it's been hacked up a bit.
Yeah, when it's closer to a beta.
Or if you wanted to run it with another system.
But I'll throw together a Power by the Apocalypse hack. Fuck.
But yeah, the actual I love the setting. I love the work you did in the NPCs. They were all very interesting.
I mean, why wouldn't you? I made them.
Shadow Realm was interesting.
Don't tell me it was a good setting.
The
fucking Quentin Tarantino. Fuck.
I know.
Yeah, the system. I would be willing to look at it after it's been acting in, because maybe I'm being a bit unfair after.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth another look when it's in its next kind of big stage. Like this was a kind of one of the early iterations. So when we see the next big iteration of it, I think a lot of these problems have been smoothed over. Like they're just logistic issues. Like literally one of the biggest problems we had was organization, and that's gonna be fixed in the next version. No problem.
No, there was a lot of pauses and us like going through the rules for like 15-20 minutes.
Yeah.
That you guys did not hear. And
Oh, yeah.
Defense.
I just hate that.
Yeah, no, it's a nightmare. But yeah, I think it's good. I like the Velvet Book. I recommend people check it out and get involved in the community because there's a whole Discord of it. I was Devin,
Nicole.
Tyler?
Peter?
Mark?
and this is sponsored by Nobody. Signing off.